Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the troublesome reign of King John, and we've only got 2 monologues left. This one that we'll hear today is King John in Act 2, Scene 8, where he is currently hiding out in an abbey. He had left the battlefield because he was not feeling well and the English weren't doing very well. He was feeling very disheartened that his troops were not doing well, so he has gone to this abbey, this Swinstead Abbey, which is one that we saw the bastard ransacking earlier in the play. So the residents of the abbey, specifically Friar Thomas, are not fans of King John. And Friar Thomas decided that the king is an enemy of the church and of the abbey and of friars, and therefore needed to be disposed of. So at the top of this scene, we have dinner is being laid out, and the friars are kind of grumbling about it, but then King John comes in, and he's got a little more pep to him, and he's like, "Come eat with you, abbot, come and eat with me, you bastard, come and eat with me." And they sit down to dinner, and Friar Thomas brings in a glass of wine, which he hands to the king, and the king is like, "Oh, you taste it first, and then you can put King's Taster on your resume." So Friar Thomas does, and the king is like, "Great," and he takes a swig, and Friar Thomas walks over there and falls over dead because the wine was poisoned. So now the king knows he has drunk the poison wine. He is going to be dying. So in yesterday's monologue, he was sort of examining his life and saying, what have I ever done that was good? What have I ever done that would make anybody miss me or feel bad for me or anything? He's like, my afterlife is not going to be a good one. And the bastard is like, just connect to God, get your faith back in God, get right with God, and everything will be fine. And King John says, "My tongue doth falter. Philip, I tell thee, man, since John did yield unto the priest of Rome, nor he nor his have prospered on the earth. Cursed are his blessings, and his curse is bliss. But in the spirit I cry unto my God, as did the kingly prophet David cry, whose hands, as mine, with murder were attaint. I am not he shall build the Lord a house, or root these locusts from the face of the earth. But if my dying heart deceive me not, from out these loins shall spring a kingly branch, whose arm shall reach unto the gates of Rome, and with his feet tread down the strumpet's pride that sits upon the chair of Babylon. Philip, my heartstrings break. The poison's flame hath overcome me in weak nature's power, and in the faith of Jesu, John doth die." But he doesn't die just yet. He's not dead at the end of this monologue. But what he's saying here is that he has had really bad luck ever since he went against the church, ever since he decided that he wasn't going to recognize the Archbishop of Canterbury. It's all been bad luck since then. So he's like, in my dying moments, I'm going to cry out to God and hope for help. But I'm also acknowledging the fact that I'm not going to affect the changes that I want to see happen in this land. He had talked earlier in the play about wanting to get rid of the church altogether. And here he's saying, I'm not going to be the one to do that, but I'm pretty sure that one of my children or children's children or children's children's children is going to do great things. The kings of my lineage will go on to do great things and undo the church in the way that I want the church undone. And then he's like, I'm in so much pain, and here I am dying. But he doesn't die quite yet. So the bastard gets all upset and he blames the church for poisoning the king, which is pretty obvious. And a messenger comes in to say that the nobles, along with Cardinal Pandolf and King John's son Henry, who we haven't seen before, but they're all outside and they want to see him, so they all come in, and Prince Henry is also furious with the Friar Thomas, so he's kind of happy to see that the friar is dead already. And Cardinal Pandolf goes to the king and he's like, if you forgive these nobles for defecting to the other side, just raise your hand in a gesture of forgiveness. So the king does, and the nobles thank him. And then Pandolf says, once again, raise your hand if you are dying as a servant of God. God, which the king does, and then he promptly dies. So effectively, he saves his soul with like 6 seconds to spare by surrendering himself to God right here at the very last moment. And then another messenger comes in to say that Lewis and his army is getting close. So the bastard is like, let's all rally behind King Henry. Now, King John's son is now King Henry, and let's go kill the French. And Pandolf is like, well, maybe not quite that, but let me go get Lewis and I'll bring him in and see if we can arrange a parley, some peace negotiations, settle everything that way. And the new King Henry orders that Swinstead Abbey be dismantled brick by brick, burned to the ground, completely destroyed. He wants none of it left because they killed his dad, who happened to be the king, and regicide is generally frowned upon. So that's the end of Act 2, Scene 8, which has some elements in it from Shakespeare's Act 5, Scene 6 and Act 5, Scene 7. So in Shakespeare's version, Act 5, Scene 6, we find out that King John was poisoned by a monk, but during a conversation between the bastard and Hubert. So we don't see it happen. We don't see the dinner. We don't see Friar Thomas hand him the wine and then go and die over there. We just hear about it. We just hear that John was poisoned by a monk. And then in Act 5, Scene 7, the king is still a little bit alive, and Prince Henry, at the time, Prince Henry gets to, pontificate on what it is for a king to die and what's that like. And then they wheel in King John, and he's just griping the whole time about how miserable it is to be dying of poison. He doesn't have these like come to Jesus moments where he realizes that he's going to burn in hell for what he's done. He doesn't actually take responsibility for any of it. He's just like, this is miserable and none of you were there for me and blah, 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 blah. So he ends up dying right there on the stage in Act 5, Scene 7. And the bastard lets us know that the French are coming, but then Salisbury is like, actually, they're not, because Louis sort of made peace with the church and he's retreated to France. So the nobles acknowledge Henry as the king, and that's the end of Shakespeare's play. But this version that we've got still has one more scene to go. So we have King John is already dead. We have Prince Henry is being recognized by the nobles as the next king in line, but we still have sort of the threat of the French, but with Cardinal Pandolf wanting to, see if we can squash that before it gets super out of control. So one scene and one monologue left to go, and then we'll wrap this baby up. So I'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.